Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everybody, how are you today? I hope we are in good condition and we always keep our healthy. In this video, we want to review about a journal. The title of the journal is Improving English Vocabulary Mastery by Using Crossword Puzzle. And the writer of the journal are Dini Restu Profita, Kunarso Susilhadi, and Teguh Sarosa. When we read the abstract, this research is aimed to find out of the improvement of the student vocabulary by using crossword puzzle and the effect of the teaching learning process when teaching vocabulary by using crossword puzzle is implemented. In this research, the writer divide into the two cycles. Each cycle contain about planning, acting, observing, and reflecting. Before conducting the research, the researcher should doing the pre-research. In the pre-research, the researcher did observation, interviewed the teacher, and give pre-test to the student. So, in the pre-research is to determine what we should do doing in the next step. Cycle 1. Planning. Before starting the action, the researcher made lesson plans, teaching materials, worksheet, and test item for first cycle. It was planned to have 3 meetings in the first cycle. So in the planning, we should to prepare anything before doing the action or acting. And then next step is acting. In this activity, the students are divided into 10 groups. The teacher distributes folded paper, write a letter. The student write the blank box with the letter. After the letter could form an English word, the teacher spelled it followed between English language and Indonesian language. In English language, the writing was different from the pronunciation, so the teacher taught how to pronounce the words correctly. The student imitated after the teacher till they could pronounce the words correctly. To introduce an English word, the teacher mentioned the meaning of this word into Indonesian language. She asked the student to memorize the word so that they could use this word in a sentence. So, in the acting, the activity guided by teacher. Then the teacher correct the pronunciation of the student. In this session, the researcher gives attention to pronunciation of the student. Focus to how the student can be pronounced the words correctly. Okay, the next step will be explain my friends. I feel enough.
Observing. When the research was implementing the action, the collaborator observed the classroom situation and teaching learning process by using crossword puzzle. The effect of teaching learning process by using crossword puzzle was better for students than before. It can be seen from the student progression in teaching learning process. The students were more active. The students actively follow teacher's instruction. They actively imitate what the teacher said and tried to focus on teaching learning activity. They paid attention in teaching learning activity because they took part in this activity. It was simple and easy for students, so the student could enjoy the activity. The use of crossword puzzle warmed up the student motivation to learn English. They were enthusiastic to struggle to come forward to class. They were confident to write the letter on the blackboard and speak up the English word. They could answer the question, although their answer was often false. The result of post-test saw an improvement comparing with the pre-test. They could do the test and answer the question. The main score of the pre-test was 50, while the post-test one score was 69 from the level 0 until 100. There were several problems coming from students. For one thing, the students were noisy. When the teacher divided the students into some pairs, they fell into chaos and confusion. For another thing, some of the students had difficulty in pronouncing the word and remembering the English word and their meaning. Furthermore, some students were still afraid to answer the question because some of students blamed the other students who made mistakes in answering the question. Reflecting, according to the observation result, the research found some problems during the teaching and learning activity which should be solved in the second cycle were: first, the students still had difficulty in remembering the English word and its meaning. Second, the student had difficulty in pronouncing the words. Third, the students were afraid to answer the question. Fourth, the student blamed the other student who made mistakes in answering the question. 5. The students were noisy and did not pay attention to teacher instruction. The cause of the problems were: first, the research only asked the student to fill the crossword puzzle by letter that write in folded paper, and it cannot trigger the student memory to remember the word. Second, in practicing pronouncing, the research asked teacher all the students to imitate what teacher say collectively, and it cannot control the pronunciation individual. Third, the research did not pay more attention to the students who made chaos and noisy during teaching and learning process. So, in my opinion, from the research about the teaching and learning process activities, used crossword puzzle could be better than before. Students can actively follow, listen to, and imitate what the teacher say. Besides that, it also makes it easy for students, so that students can enjoy and motivate students in learning. They are also enthusiastic about striving to advance to class.
Revising plan. Based on the result of reflection above, the teacher and the researcher planned to solve the problem which had occurred in cycle 1. The researcher planned to change the form of crossword puzzle. In first cycle, the researcher made a game to fulfill the crossword puzzle. The researcher used folded paper as media, and the researcher found some problems. The researcher solved the problems with solution in second cycle. The researcher would not make a game to trigger the student memory about the English word. The researcher would ask the student to fill the incomplete crossword puzzles by their knowledge. By using it, students would try to remember the English word and would practice to be brave in writing the answer in front of the class. The researcher would focus more in teaching pronunciation. She would give more practice pronunciation to all students one by one. It was done to help students how to pronounce words correctly. The researcher would pay more attention to the students who made chaos and noisy during teaching and learning process. She would warm up the student motivation to be active in teaching learning process. Acting. In this activity, the students write the letter on the blank box. After the letter could from an English word, the teacher spelled the letter and followed by students. There was a distinction between English language and Indonesian language. In English language, the written was different with the pronunciation. So, the teacher taught how to pronounce the word correctly. The students imitate after the teacher till they could pronounce the word correctly. To introduce an English word, the teacher mentioned the meaning of this word into Indonesian language. She asked the students to memorize the word so that they could use this word in a sentence. So, the conclusion from the text is to trigger the students' memory about the English word. The researcher would ask the student to fill the incomplete crossword puzzle by their knowledge. By using it, students would try to remember the English word and would practice to be brave in writing the answer in front of the class. The researcher would focus more in teaching pronunciation. She would give more practice pronunciation to all students one by one. It was done to help students how to pronounce words correctly. Then in this activity, the student write the letter on the blank box. After the letter could from an English word, the teacher spelled the letter and followed by students. To introduce an English word, the teachers mentions the meaning of this word in Indonesian language. She asked the students to memorize the word so that they could use this word in a sentence.
Observing. The observation toward the research implementation in Cycle 2 was also done by the collaborator. The teaching-learning process by using crossword puzzle in the cycle also saw the student improvement on vocabulary mastery and the effect of teaching-learning process. The result of observation saw the improvement on vocabulary mastery. The score of post-test 2 is better than the one of post-test 1. The mean score of post-test 2 was 80. Besides, students had motivation in following the lesson. They saw better improvement from the previous test. The effect of teaching-learning process by using crossword puzzle was indicated by the following facts. First, the students were more active in following the lesson. Second, most of the students were not asked to answer the question. Third, students become less noisy. They could focus more on the lesson. Fourth, the use of crossword puzzle in teaching-learning activity could ramp up the student motivation to learn English. Finally, the student paid attention in teaching-learning activity because the student took part in that activity. It built an enjoyable situation because it was simple and easy for students, so they could actively follow teacher instruction. Reflecting. Based on the observation result, teacher and the researcher reflect the implementation of Cycle 2 as follows. First, the student could pronounce the words correctly. 2. The student remember the vocabulary stuff and their meaning. 3. The students were active in following the lesson and become more focused on the lesson. 4. The students were not asked to answer the question. The teacher and the researcher conclude that the use of crossword puzzle could improve student vocabulary mastery and make the teaching-learning activity effective. Each cycle of the research saw an improvement. The achievement of the student vocabulary mastery increased. The mean score of post-test 1 was 69. The mean score of post-test 2 was 80. The student could pronounce the words correctly and more fluently than before. So the student pronunciation improvement. So the student pronunciation improved. The student could remember the vocabulary stuff and its meaning. The teaching English by using crossword puzzle gave the good effect to students. The students were more active in following the lesson because the use of crossword puzzle built the student motivation in following the lesson. So, the student could focus more on teaching learning activity. Most of the students were not asked to answer the question given by the researcher. Based on the journal that I have been reading, to be honest, I didn't get the difference between observing and reflecting. From observing and reflecting, can conclude that crossword puzzle is able to improve the student vocabulary, and the teaching learning use crossword puzzle gives a good effect to students. I think I think observing and reflecting have similarities. Okay, I think it's enough for our explanation. Thank you for your attention. Stay healthy and keep smiling. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye.